Hello and welcome to today's webinar, 6 Reasons Anthos Enables Multi-Cloud. This event is presented in partnership with Taos and produced by Actual Tech Media. Thanks so much for joining us on this event. You're going to learn a lot about what Anthos is and how it can help you. Before we get started, just a few things that you should know about the event. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. This is going to be a fun panel discussion where you'll learn from experts at Taos and Google Cloud. We want this to be educational. We want to help to answer your questions, and we will be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the event, so get your questions in early. I also want to call your attention to the Handouts tab. It's there that you'll find a number of resources and special links that you'll learn about on the event today. At the end of the webinar, I'll be announcing the winner of our Visa $300 gift card. You must be on the live event, of course, to be eligible for the prize drawing and also meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. We're also running our best question prize today for another Visa $50 gift card. Of course, you have to ask a question to be entered into the prize drawing and meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions that you can find there in your Handouts tab. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you now to today's expert presenters. Welcome Mr. Robert Croto, Principal Consultant at Taos, Marc Hall, Director of Google Platform Delivery at Taos, Clayton Harrison, National Google Alliance Manager at Taos, and John Bacon, AppMod Lead Partner Engineering at Google Cloud. Robert, Marc, Clayton, and John, it's great to have you all on. Let's now bring up everyone's video and learn more about Anthos. We're here today to talk about Anthos, which is a managed application platform that extends Google Cloud services. It's designed specifically for application modernization in hybrid cloud environments. So let's jump right into our panel discussion here. We know that Google Cloud is a big proponent of open source technology. So why did they develop a managed application platform rather than just letting people decide how to build out their own development environment? Isn't integrating open source technology something that developers do anyway? So why does adopting Anthos help? John?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. At Google, we're definitely a big proponent of open source technologies. But to me, the real question is, do customers benefit from open source products? I think the answer is definitely yes, but I want to make an important distinction. Customers don't want to run pure open source software, right? It's cumbersome to install and manage. And on top of that, it's pretty difficult to get supported. So if I'm going to run a mission critical system, the lack of support could be a deal breaker. But what I think customers want is products and services that are open. And what I mean by that is customers fear getting locked into specific technologies, especially if that technology comes with a high licensing cost. So if I'm going to build my application around a specific technology, I want the ability to change or upgrade to different technologies without a major overhaul of my application, even if it's not something I'm thinking about today. Just having that gives customers a peace of mind. So in regards to Anthos, it's important to note it's not a single product. It's actually multiple components that together give you this multi-cloud or hybrid cloud platform, and it allows you to run your application anywhere. Now, some of these components help infrastructure teams, some help developers, and some help security. And most of the components are actually built on open source technologies. We take advantage of Kubernetes, Knative, and Istio, and those are just some of the core building blocks of Anthos. This gives our customers an open platform that's consistent across clouds, whether it's GCP or even other clouds, as well as on-prem, without that fear of lock-in. Plus, you get that full support from Google.
Thanks for clarifying that, John. So you mentioned security and IT both here. Can you elaborate on how Anthos helps both of those groups?
Yeah, certainly. When I talk about Anthos, the first thing I like to think about is who within your IT organization does this benefit? And the answer is a few different teams. Groups like infrastructure teams, developers or app owners, and security teams all see benefits of Anthos. I mentioned it's multiple components. One of those components is GKE. It's our managed version of Kubernetes, and it helps infrastructure teams, get a consistent platform that they can deploy in Google, in their own data center, or even in other clouds. It gives them a consistent upgrade and management process to work with. Another component to think about is Anthos Service Mesh. ASM actually benefits both developers and security teams. So for developers, it's going to automate a lot of functionality into your network, that things that developers might actually have to code into their applications. Things like circuit breaking, how to route traffic between different services, or split traffic for canary rollouts and doing testing. But ASM also helps security teams. It handles encryption by using MTLS. It handles authentication and authorization between my services. It handles certificate management. And Anthos has a lot of other components around security. One is binary authorization. That helps secure software supply chains. So it's going to validate if a container image that you're deploying is a trusted image, as well as the repo that it's coming from. We want to make sure that it's trusted and secure. So these are just a few examples of a couple components of Anthos and how they help with infrastructure or security. There's definitely a few more components that I didn't mention, but I think the takeaway is that you have a lot of different components that, when put together, they help you build a consistent, secure platform to run modern applications, containerized applications across multiple clouds or on-prem.
Very nice. I like that flexibility there. And so if I were to just play devil's advocate for a moment, many platforms out there make kind of similar claims. What is it that makes Anthos so different and special?
So Google asked Forrester to evaluate Anthos capabilities based on real deployments out there in the wild. And the results were impressive. So rapid deployment, for example, time spent on non-coding was reduced by 38%. Patching and releasing efforts was reduced up to 97.5%. Simplified management. So when you're able to manage your cloud from a single pane, those customers realize a return on investment for 484%. As John mentioned, so improved security, posturing, and operations. Policy deployment time reduced up to 96%, and the security tasks improved up to 75%. And last but not least is the operational efficiency that's gained. So the time to migrate apps was cut up to 75%. And the platform operations themselves were improved up to 55%.
Those are some very impressive stats, Rob. So, this seems almost too good to be true. Can you tell us a little bit more about the reasons behind those results?
Yeah, and as promised in the webinar description, right, these are the 6 key reasons. The first is a comprehensive integrated tools and services. There's a consistent development experience across the hybrid environments, support for rapid development and experimentation, unified and automated approach to security, consistent operations and scale across the hybrid environments. And then last but not least is serverless and service mesh capabilities.
Very impressive. I love the comprehensive idea here, that it's not just a single, like say, on-premises tool. It's not just a cloud tool. There's support for rapid development of applications. I love the keywords here: unified and secure and consistent and scalable and hybrid. And so a lot of flexibility here. Rob, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about these different areas.
Sure. So if we look at the first one, the integrated tool sets and services, so Anthos supports a broad range of those new technologies. So developers don't have to spend the time maintaining those platforms and can focus on their task at hand. And the second is really the cost factor, right? Because if you were to bring in all those other technologies, you have sourcing and integration, you have to deploy them, and then you have to maintain them over time. So, running Kubernetes by yourself or Istio or Knative, that takes time and resources to do that. So by going with Anthos, you package all that together, and most of it is managed by Google themselves. So if we also look at the development experience across those platforms, so now you're enabling yourself to do microservice deployment, serverless application architectures. You have the service mesh, you have Kubernetes on-prem and in the public cloud. So, and this is an important part to empower your developers, right? So they're able to innovate and increase the speed without not going all in on one public cloud. So they have that flexibility there. Rapid support for that app delivery and the experimentation. So now you can use Anthos to automate the infrastructure and the security tasks and just keep developers coding, right? They don't need to worry about that. And when you free up their time, they can experiment, they can deploy updates, and they can react to customer demands with speed and agility. And so if we turn our focus on security, so now Anthos is baking in security by default with policy configuration. So they can do deployment automation, they reduce the manual tasks and the hardening environments because it's all done in policy as code. And while they're able to do that, that accelerates their release velocity, right? And so if there was something going on in the environment in terms of patching, enables more frequent patching, so they can just take care of zero-day threats. So, combined with smart management and automation practices, Anthos helps prevent those vulnerabilities, shortens the time to close them, and mitigates any potential attacks. In terms of consistent operations and scaling across hybrid environments, Anthos includes consistent automation, platform operations, and orchestrated container infrastructure on-premise and in the public cloud, giving them a single pane of glass for managing operations deployments with centralized control. So multiple vendors and open source solutions can balloon that cost of licensing, hardware, professional services to set up, headcount to maintain those systems. But with Anthos as a consistent platform, managing the environment and even managing the vendor contract with Google itself becomes more streamlined. And this also helps vendor locking that John mentioned earlier. So now that you have your applications running on Anthos, they're portable across Google Cloud, VMware environments, and other cloud providers. And last but not least, the serverless and service mesh. So now you have leading edge capabilities that further your microservices benefits of cost savings, labor savings, dependability. So with the service mesh itself, that's an abstracted layer that provides a uniform way for them to connect, secure, monitor, and manage those microservices. It makes use of a lightweight proxy and brings the security, resiliency, and visibility to service communications. In our case, this is Istio on the platform. And that also gives us visibility into the application traffic, which makes it a lot easier to troubleshoot these complex environments. Last but not least is really serverless, right? So you're able to run workloads with not having to worry about any underlying infrastructure. So you can execute your code only when needed, and you can auto scale from 0 to N depending on your traffic patterns. And that's really achieved by running Cloud Run for Anthos in this situation.
Wow, so many different features and benefits. It's really impressive. It sounds like Anthos is just such a great solution and something that a lot of enterprises out there should look at investing in if they want to get these kind of results, those statistics that you were talking about. So what's the best way to get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to call out that Google works really closely with our partners like Taos. We think of them as our extended team. So if you're looking for a follow-up conversation to dive deeper into the product, or maybe a hands-on workshop, or even kick the tires with a pilot, I'd recommend working alongside your Google team and Taos to get started.
Much appreciated, John. Taos has been a Google Premier Partner since 2014. We've been providing level 2 and 3 support for Premier Google clients in North America. And Taos is recognized as a Premier MSP by Google with specializations in infrastructure and cloud migration. Anthos is a very powerful tool suite and requires expert guidance to navigate pitfalls during implementation and deployment and avoid unnecessary licensing and compute charges. Taos Services for Anthos adoption leverages our world-class Google Cloud design and deployment expertise. We can help your teams become more productive using our prescriptive approach based on proven architecture framework. Marc, you want to tell them how they can get started?
Yeah, so to take what Clayton said just a little bit further, as a first step in getting engaged in the Anthos journey, what Taos would do is to help our customers by having an Anthos workshop. And during that workshop, we would focus on their environments. We'd understand what they have and what they need, and we'd help them define a strategy and identify a workload to move. And then our base offering for Anthos really kicks in around looking to transform 20 target VMs into containerized end state environments. And we focus on doing that while using Google best practices for Anthos, GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, and the on-prem workloads, along with our architectural blueprint. So, we would conduct a formal and detailed collaborative session that includes handing off to client operations staff, or in the case if Taos is going to be providing operational run support, we may perform a client handoff to our Taos managed services. And this is a really important part of the process because this is the piece that enables the client to maintain the operations and to really adopt even the basics of containerization. And further, if a customer already has an enterprise running containerized workloads, we can assist in architecting and implementing Anthos across that organization, either within a single cloud or multi-cloud environment that helps our customers have that single view into all of their containerized workloads.
Very nice, Mark. So I'm curious, you talked about the prescriptive approach. What do you mean by that? And also a proven architectural framework. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So our advisory and professional services teams are really good at executing against proven methodologies and best practices. I guess we call that our superpower. But we also ensure that we bring our clients along the journey and our partners as well. So partnering with Google throughout all of the journey to Anthos. So these methods that we have and have defined are tested extensively and validated, not only with customers, but also in our Taos Google Center of Innovation. So in this case, thinking about Anthos, an engagement really begins by, again, evaluating the client's environment and then focusing on a prioritized list, or really prescriptions, so to speak, of what the needed actions are to set up the tooling and processes, both for successful implementation and that operational support going forward. And all of these are aligned to what we know has worked and will work well in focusing on the journey to Anthos. And really the key point here too as well is, if there's something to address, this is when we are here to address it together. So any challenges or any specific use cases or niche cases that need to be addressed. And one of the ways that we do that is we do have a prescriptive architecture and supporting framework, which provides this blueprint for success.
Very cool. So when we talk about architectures and frameworks, I know some folks might be thinking, hey, this could be complex. How does Taos help to navigate that complexity once you get past the evaluation stage?
And Dave, I'll take that. So I'll kind of describe the journey at a high level, and people are more than welcome to ask in-depth questions after if they'd like. But the main components that we set up for the customers, first, that discovery and assessment. We want to take a look at your environment, analyze your existing application landscape. We want to assess which apps currently are ready for containerization and which some may not be at present. And then we'll also conduct a review of your GCP platform and just make sure that can support Anthos as a whole. And then we'll dive into the Anthos architecture, right? We'll design your Anthos environment with using Google best practices, as Mark said, but we'll also customize that for each client, right? It needs to be custom. It needs to support your computing needs and your growth needs, right? Every customer is unique, and we design that with that in mind. And then there comes the Anthos Connect piece. So once we do all that, we're going to connect your Kubernetes clusters to GCP, and we're going to enable access to those clusters so you can take a look at those in the unified cloud console. Then we'll install the service mesh. We'll enable it, enable observations, the secure communications, the MTLS that John talked about earlier, all the monitoring, control, and data planes that need to be set up. We'll go through that. And then we'll start to do the config policy management. So we'll set up ACM, and that'll have a common repo, and we'll install that, upgrade your clusters, and manage the configuration, and set up the dashboard that reports all your cluster statuses. And then last but not least, we'll migrate all those containers that we did the analysis on over into the platform, configure them inside of ASM and ACM, and make sure that they're operating accordingly. And then the final piece is, now that you have everything inside Anthos, you still need to log and monitor and get those metrics so you can do it on an ongoing basis and keep streamlining your applications for top performance. So we'll help the customers establish a baseline and then teach them how to spot those trends and create those into metrics for further analysis.
Well, thanks for elaborating on that, Rob. I know you mentioned a couple times a base offering. Can you talk to us a little bit about other services maybe that you provide?
Absolutely. So in addition to the base offering that you mentioned, which is the 20 VMs that we'll containerize and get onto Anthos, we also do app app migration and modernization. So we'll actually refactor and decompose your monolith applications, put them in the microservices, and get them ready to run on top of Anthos as well. And at the same time, we also do some cloud consumption analysis against your business priorities and work with clients to maximize their investment in the cloud. And another service that we have added onto that is continuous integration and deployment. So whether the existing customers have a CI/CD pipeline, we can take a look at it and help them optimize it. Or if you're new to that, we'll actually design one and implement one for you and integrate it in with Anthos.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we don't cap this to those services being available as simply they're part of or as an addition to an Anthos offering. Obviously, we like to think of our customers, on their journey to the cloud in sort of being in a continuum of a space where they're looking at their infrastructure modernization or even the foundations for their infrastructure, the application modernization that sits on top of that. And Rob talked about the CI/CDs and the migrations. And then, of course, data modernization. So thinking about how data is handled and operated and analytics can occur and those further use cases around AI and ML. And really, getting to that kind of digital optimization space. And the way that we do that is through our tech advisory services, where we can come in and really just help customers figure out where they are on the journey and what their next steps should be. Our platform engineering, so ensuring that not just those infrastructure pieces are there, but also the platforms that sit on top of those that enable the true transformation and optimization. And then we focus on cloud migrations, so helping our customers actually take their workloads and their data and move into the cloud or be portable in services such as Anthos. Our managed services teams are able to take on not just sort of your traditional managed services around sort of end user support and even sort of advanced support, but engineering services and product support and all of the pieces that go along with that. We have a service around DevOps that is a managed services and allows customers to consume Taos services for DevOps in a very creative and efficient way. And then our security services. So wrapped around all of this, making sure that everything remains secure and focused on a security posture throughout.
Excellent. Very comprehensive offering. Thank you, Marc. Clayton, I want to ask you, if you were to summarize what Anthos Adoption Service is, what it's all about, how would you do it?
I think Taos accelerates digital application modernization and business transformation. Flexible, adaptable, we can help you move quickly to see if Anthos is the right solution for you and put you on a path to success. It all comes back to the 6 reasons that choosing and using Anthos makes sense for the enterprise. Our Anthos clients have more time to drive innovation, optimized IT and security efficiency and lower operational costs, unleashed performance through modernized apps, increased power, scalability, and security, simplified management of apps landscape, both on-prem and in the cloud, and increased visibility and control of cloud spend. We want to collaborate with you on your cloud journey. And if Anthos seems like a possible fit for your organization, let's talk. We invite you and your business leaders to a Taos-led Anthos workshop at a value of $15,000 at no cost to you.
Wow, that sounds like a fantastic offering that could help so many companies out there to better modernize their applications and their data, secure their organization. It's now time for our Q&A. John, Marc, Rob, and Clayton, it's been great chatting with you. Let's go to our audience now and take their questions. All right, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed our discussion. Thank you so much to our experts from Taos and Google. We've been receiving your questions during the presentation here, the discussion, and queuing up the best questions for our Q&A. So let's see, we've got Marc, Rob, Clayton, and John with me now, and let's start taking some questions. While we do that, I encourage you to check out the slide that's there on the screen, and that link that you see at the bottom to take advantage of the free workshop is a hyperlink. If you just click on that, You can sign up for that link. It'll open a new web browser tab or window, and you can sign up for that free workshop that you learned about here on the webinar. So let's see. First question I wanted to ask, this one's going out to John. John, they're asking, since Google Cloud from Taos is open source, how secure is the platform?
Yeah, sure. So I think what maybe Ned's asking about Anthos specifically, Anthos is built on top of open source products like Kubernetes and Istio and Knative, but it is fully managed and supported by Google. So it's not just pure open source technologies, it's managed versions of that. And there's a lot of security components that come alongside that. I would actually say that when we talk about just Google Cloud in general, one of the things that we like to differentiate ourselves with is kind of our security story and the amount of effort we put into security. So I wouldn't have any concerns there. I would say it's definitely definitely a secure platform, but also has a lot of components that accompany it that add to the security story. Things like binary authorization, ASM, config management helps a little bit with security. There's a lot of other components out there. Vulnerability scanners that are part of the Google Cloud platform to help scan containers for vulnerabilities and things like that. Hope that answers your question, Ned.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, John. Next question, this one's for you, Rob. They're asking, will or does Taos Anthos support other cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, or GovX?
Yeah, so Anthos is a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud platform. So what it allows you to do is deploy a managed version of Kubernetes, which is GKE. And it is currently supported, obviously, in Google Cloud, but also on-prem. We can run it on top of VMware or bare metal. So if you're using like Ubuntu or CentOS, it does run as well on top of virtual machines in AWS or Azure. So you can run it on other clouds, and then you can connect everything back together so that you have this consistent multi-cloud experience, whether you're running your workloads in Google, in your own data center, or in AWS or Azure. As far as Gov, then there's no reason that a government agency, couldn't run Anthos in their own on-prem data center. If you're talking about like a Gov Cloud, Google doesn't actually have our own Gov Cloud. Typically, what we do is we validate and get the compliance and certifications across all of our products and infrastructure so that we don't have to have a specific cloud that has separate compliance or different certifications for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. I appreciate that.
I was just going to say, I have
John.
a link. I'll post it in the chat. Anthos is charged per virtual CPU. So however Kubernetes sees a CPU, which is which could be like a core. There is two payment options. There's pay as you go. So if you're just spinning up Anthos clusters, you don't have a subscription, you would be charged at a rate for pay as you go. If you do get a subscription, those are typically 100 vCPU blocks at a time. And there is a discount if you do purchase a subscription. That's just for using all of the components with Anthos. You obviously still have to pay for the consumption of the components. If you're running in AWS, you're going to pay for the VMs in AWS. If you're running on-prem, you're going to have to buy the infrastructure, have the VMware licensing if you're running on top of VMware or whatever else it may be, as well as any consumption of other products within Google. And I will paste a link to that in the chat. I hope everyone can see that. If not, I'll get it in there somehow. I just posted it.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll make sure that the audience gets that link. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Let's see. Here's another question. This one maybe for the Taos folks. They're asking, with limited staff, current on-prem could continue to be managed by existing IT and professional services could be engaged to expand operations to the public cloud. What kind of staff does it take to manage an Anthos implementation? I believe is really where the question lies. Rob or maybe Clayton or Mark want to chat about that?
All right. So, what I would say from a what does it take for Anthos as a start? First of all, we absolutely will bring a team that can step you through not just the technical needs and understanding of what we're up against from a technical perspective, to understand your environments and to understand the right path to Anthos and the services in Google and on the Anthos platform, but also to understand sort of how does this fit into your IT roadmap, right? How does this fit in from both a perspective of where you're going and what your goals are, and also, how it can really be implemented. How does this change get adopted, and how does it affect the services that you're bringing to bear for your enterprise? So bringing that team, specifically, we will always bring an architect who's deeply knowledgeable in both the Google Cloud Platform and Anthos pieces of the puzzle, as well as whether you're on-prem or in AWS or whatever your footprint might look like, the architecture and design skills to be able to manage that. We will bring the engineering skills to be able to either augment your team or to specifically take on the engineering tasks that have to be done in the discovery and design phases. So just really bringing a solid team to be able to do those technical pieces, and then to be able to help you deliver and engage and really make sure that those get implemented and adopted. Will bring the program management and consulting to wrap around that.
Excellent. Thanks for explaining that in more detail. I want to respond back to the other question about the pricing and licensing. I am sharing John's link with Ned, who originally answered or asked that question, and with the entire audience as well. So make sure that you check out that link. Next question, maybe this one's back to you, John. They want to know, does a single pane view include on-prem private clouds in addition to other cloud providers?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking in the GCP console, you can see all of the clusters running. It doesn't matter if that cluster is in your own data center or running on AWS or Azure. So you have view of all of that. You have some management capabilities as well. One thing I didn't mention when I answered the previous question is you can also connect non-Anthos clusters. So if you're running, let's say, EKS in AWS or OpenShift on-prem, you can actually connect those back to the Google Cloud Console via the Anthos Hub, and you have visibility into those clusters as well. You still have some capabilities. You can use some Anthos components with those clusters. You just don't have the same lifecycle management that you would have with a GKE cluster running in those environments. So not only can you see the clusters wherever they are, you can actually see non-Anthos clusters as well if you connect them.
Very nice. I didn't, and I bet a lot of folks out there don't realize, just how comprehensive this is, that you can get management of these clusters wherever they are, on-prem or in the cloud, in the single pane of glass, if you will, if we must use that phrase. But very cool. Let's see. Next question. A lot of great questions for everyone from everyone out there. So thank you for those. I want to remind everyone, of course, about the link and the additional information on the workshop that's there in the slide. Make sure that you check that out while we continue our Q&A here. This one is for you, Marc. Or actually, we covered that one. Let's see. Next question. This one is for you, Marc. They're wanting to know, what about the challenges when it comes to kind of getting ramp up time and deployment? What's that typically like?
Yeah, I mean, as far as challenges, if I was to speak to sort of the general challenges, which this wouldn't be Anthos specific necessarily, but one of the things that we think is the most important, one of the most important things to do as we begin an engagement is to mobilize correctly, properly. And this really is what sort of sets the foundation of our partnership in driving to success in an engagement. And so what that really looks like is just early on making sure that we bring all of the right stakeholders to the table. And that would be both on the Taos side and obviously on the customer side, so that we, as we begin, everybody is nodding their heads and understanding what is it that we're up against, right? What is it that we're trying to achieve? And every single time we have those conversations, we'll find out that somebody actually wants to achieve something that wasn't on the menu for this particular engagement. And addressing those is really key, right? So understanding for the things that we want to address next, how are we going to do that? And that's really beginning to build trust across the team as we mobilize. Understanding who's going to do what. So we have a very nice prescriptive approach to our mobilization that includes understanding who's responsible and who's accountable for the tasks underway, and like when those things need to happen, so that we're really able to make sure that timelines and effort and people are taken into account. And that will help us so that when we get to the challenges and the things that are hard to solve, whether those be technical or kind of practical and tactical things, that we're all in that together to solve. And I think, from a perspective of just a general, what are the biggest challenges, that would be where I would start. And those would be the things that help us to overcome the challenges that will come with any engagement. I don't know if Rob, if you've got your audio, or if John, if one of you guys want to add any specifics around Anthos, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, I'll say for Anthos specifically, I think what you said, Mark, actually applies. Getting the right stakeholders will help avoid any challenges and actually show some of the benefits of the platform, especially if you're doing like a pilot or you're trying to test it out. And when I'm talking about stakeholders, I'm talking about just different individuals within your IT organization. Because Anthos has components that are focused on security, Anthos is a platform for infrastructure teams, but it runs modern applications. Then it's good to make sure that you're involving not only the infrastructure team, but also developers or the app owners, the security teams. Otherwise, you might be focusing just on one of the components, and then you don't necessarily see the entire benefit of everything working together.
Absolutely. And let's see, one of the questions that did come in, and this one was for you, they were asking, you said that there's multiple components in Anthos that make up the solution. Will all companies use all the components of Anthos, or will they be able to kind of pick and choose what fits best for their environment?
We'd recommend all the components, but they can certainly pick and choose what works best for the customers. In some cases, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to not do something like ASM if you're running multiple clusters. But if you're just one customer with just Anthos and you're managing a smaller footprint, and you wouldn't necessarily wanted to take that on at present, then you could do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could.
Okay. What about, there's another question here around application dependency mapping. Can Anthos help in any way with that?
Inside the mesh itself, you'll be able to see all the components in that case, but I'm not necessarily sure how deep they're talking. If it's not under Anthos control, it's not necessarily like a database of all the interconnects for applications outside of the platform.
Got it. Okay. And then another question they're asking here about the learning curve. What's the learning curve for someone who hasn't, maybe worked with Google Cloud before to ramp up and get started with this and really be able to administer it?
Yeah, I mean, if you were new to Google itself, then the learning curve would be steep. If you were new to Kubernetes, the learning curve really isn't that much. You'd really need to know, you need to get a sure footing on the GCP platform itself. And then Anthos itself has a bit of a learning curve just to get through all the components and the complexities of the networks behind it that support it.
Got it.
And then
okay.
the maintaining piece is actually where it gets simpler, right? Because once you have your applications on the platform, you have that central repository for all the configuration management. You've got your secure container images that are being deployed through your pipelines if you had those. So you start to get more streamlined as you get onto the platform than just kind of managing these components individually.
Got it. And I'd be willing to bet, since we have the Anthos Accelerator workshop slide on the screen right now, that Taos helps to flatten that learning curve.
Exactly. Yeah. So we, this is it's what we do, right? So part of that package, like we said, when we come in, we're going to take a look at your GCP platform. We're going to talk to your staff. We're going to see where those gaps may lie. And so as we go along, we want to make sure we bring your staff along on the journey as well. So it's not a cold handover. We're going to do this in tandem with you and make sure we're kind of bringing you up to speed as we go along. And of course, the customers in every single design discussion that we have, and they understand what we're building and why. And so we help them be successful in that way as well.
Yeah, and this is Mark. If I can jump in for a second, I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think first of all, we're here for you with our managed services team that can pick up the run components and make sure that those are just absolutely solidly supported as an extension of your team and the services that Taos provides. And I think we sort of live by, Rob and I have done many engagements together, and we sort of live by the never leave a person behind, right? And so we are very dedicated to make sure that that customers' teams are indeed not just reading the documentation and attending handover sessions, but are really proving out that they're able to pick up and run with operations. So that's something we, like Rob said, we're good at. That's why we're here, and a big part of the journey that I think lands everyone in success.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to know that you guys are there to help. This question's interesting from Jonathan, who's asking, we have some aging AS400 database type applications. We've got regulatory and risk reasons when it comes to the migration. Do you all offer any strategies or recommendations on how to wrap this and make it supported with agile development? Mark, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can pick up that one as well. So what I will say is it's a two-part answer for Taos. The first part is that absolutely yes, for understanding those environments in a discovery fashion and being able to produce a roadmap and a story and an approach is absolutely part of the advisory services in our wheelhouse. And when you start to include some of the technologies like AS400 or any type of older systems that might be a little bit out of the kind of traditional Taos reach, one of the exciting parts of who we are is that our parent is IBM, and as having a parent like that would be, we've got the ability to tap into skills for those types of systems, or really kind of anything out there in the world from a technology perspective. And the other advantage that we get there too is to really have strong understanding in industry verticals, which wasn't something we really talked a lot about so far today, but being able to understand how this applies for transformation, digital transformation and cloud transformation in an industry vertical, absolutely a superpower of our parent company, and something that we can tap into very easily and seamlessly for our end customers.
Very nice. There's a couple questions here about ransomware. What about ransomware? John, do you have any advice for those folks who are concerned about ransomware and Anthos and Google Cloud in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like specific about that Anthos when it comes to ransomware. There's definitely other ways to mitigate ransomware. Segmenting your network. Things like ASM might actually help, because it's kind of like a zero trust model, so that something like a ransomware wouldn't spread between other services, and you could cut it off. It would do that by not allowing, like if a service was compromised, not allowing it to communicate to another service. So there are things in there that help, but there's really, I wouldn't say it's a platform designed to prevent that. There's other mitigations that you would have that they could come with Google Cloud and other Google services, as well as just ensuring that you set up your environment in a secure way with proper network segmentation and things like that. And that's where we would rely on a partner like Taos, who's doing that work to make sure that everything's set up appropriately as well. I don't know if that 100% answered the question, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And then there's another question here. They're asking about just multi-cloud in general. The question is it a good practice to have multi-cloud being utilized within the organization, for better business strategy or operating model? What's your take in general on multi-cloud? Rob, you want to start with that?
Sure. My personal view on that is it depends on your business need. So a lot of customers out there want to have the best of breed of everything. They don't necessarily want to be locked into one vendor. So if you're going to go down that route, my suggestion is always, know one cloud well before you decide to venture into another cloud. Because there's a lot of complexities only, running inside of one cloud, but then you have to take into consideration those same complexities and then interoperability between the services in those clouds. And that's a great use case for where Anthos actually comes in, right? So if you're able to port your applications into containers and then run them across multiple clouds, the underlying platform doesn't necessarily make a big play in there because they're running in containers that can run across either on-prem, AWS or GCP or any other cloud provider.
Got it. Great advice. John, maybe this one's for you. They say they recently read that Google has expanded Anthos support to manage infrastructure as a service, not just containers and multi-cloud. Is that correct? And can you elaborate?
Yeah, so we're adding support. I don't think it's launched yet. I think it's coming very soon. And if it just launched, maybe I missed that. We're adding support to manage virtual machines. So if you're using Anthos as a containerized platform, you obviously have to have your applications running in containers. But if you're not ready for that step yet to modernize the application and to break them down from VMs to containers, then having the ability to manage VMs with Anthos will help with that.
Excellent. And then I know someone, maybe it was Mark or Rob, not sure who, mentioned, your experience with specific industry sectors and verticals. Mary out there is asking, she perhaps works in the financial sector because she's asking, how secure is this platform when it comes to supporting banking applications?
I can just say something
Go ahead,
really
John.
quick. A lot of our early adopters from Anthos, when we launched it a couple of years ago, as well as our largest installs today, are very large banks. So hopefully that gives you peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, it looks like we've covered pretty much all the questions out here we have time for. I know we're starting to reach the top of the hour. Unless there's any further questions that anyone wants to cover. Rob, Mark, Clayton, or John, any further questions or last words?
I'm sure Taos will say the same. We're definitely happy to have a conversation. If any of this is interesting, if you want to see if this is a right fit for your company, happy to chat about it.
Excellent. Thank you, John.
This is Mark. I would echo that. That absolutely. That's what we'd love to do, is just come alongside you and have a chat about, what's the right approach. We talked about much of this having defined methodology and some nice, blueprint approaches. We also recognize that everyone will have some unique circumstances, and we'd really like to help with how those are interpreted and understood, so that we can help drive towards a successful plan and implementation, and really leverage Anthos for the best of what you need in your enterprise. So yeah, please do reach out to us, whether it's through the strategy workshop or just for a direct conversation. We'd love to partner with you.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, the Taos Google Anthos Accelerator Strategy Workshop, valued at $15,000 for free. If you click on the link right there and sign up for that, I encourage everyone to check that out. It seems like a fantastic opportunity to learn more about how Anthos can help companies of all sizes and all industries out there. So a great opportunity. I encourage everyone to check out that link there before you go. Of course, I want to give a big thanks to Taos and Google Cloud for supporting the event today. And big thank you, of course, to the audience as well for joining us. I learned a lot in today's discussion. I'm sure that you did as well. Don't forget about the link there in the handouts tab that'll take you to the Taos Google Cloud partner website, where you can learn more about the Anthos solution and how Google Cloud has helped companies as well. There's a lot of different case studies. So make sure that you check out that resource before you go. Again, thanks to everyone in the audience for joining us. I do want to announce the winner of our Visa $300 gift card today. This is going out to Lauren Davidson from California. Congratulations. And we will reach out to our best question prize winner as well after the event. Thanks to everyone for being on the webinar today. 6 reasons Anthos enables multi-cloud. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.